Yo, guys, can anybody hear me out there in Instagram? Any sound out there? Theo, good sound? All right, that's awesome. Can you hear me? All right, I hope you guys can hear me. I had a little bit of sound problem with the sound. Somebody let me know that you can hear me with the sound. Yes, okay, that's good. Sorry, guys, just had to redo there to make sure that we're there. Snowest, he's coming on. We're gonna check. Oh boy, I see a dirt bike and an e-bike. Hey, Ryan Harris, are you there?
I'm here.
This is Dave Nerona. I changed my hair and everything for just to be with you, buddy.
I'll take you however you go. That's
Hey, this is my new e-bike platform. This actually goes on my 850 turbo, right on the riser. And this is anything I look at. This is the first thing that something that I'm going to either hit or
that's
fly off or blast through. This is the first thing it sees.
that looks like you because all I remember imagining you is when you do that big mouth app on all your videos. Looks. Oh, hold on, I didn't realize it was there. We good now?
Yeah, when I'm talking to someone as important as you, I don't like you
I
to
didn't know
see
it was
my.
sunglasses night.
I don't like to see you to see my face because when I'm talking to someone as big as you, I gotta hide my face a little bit.
When you say big, do you mean tall?
Both tall and superstar statue.
Oh no.
I I like
No,
what's in the.
there's only one Nerona of the world.
I like what you got in the background there. Is that a timber sled, and then you've got a.
No, that's my beta from Colby Off Road. It's been in pieces since I got it last fall, and then that's my e-bike right there.
Sweet. Did you get out for an e-bike ride today?
No, my wife and I went yesterday with our daughter. We went did a little rip around the river, but nothing major.
Tell
I mean,
me, what bike does Candace ride?
she's got an e-bike. She's got a Turbo Levo.
Sweet, and
Yeah.
we'll get into that a little bit. But I do want to say hello to everybody out there. Thanks for joining. I also want to say a welcome and thanks for joining for all those who just saw Carl Kuster at CKMP going through his second live video of the 850 Turbo. Carl, you did a fantastic job. I love all the questions, and there was a great. My favorite question was, will Dennis, one of the guides at CKMP, be more of a ladies' man if he gets a turbo? And the answer to that question was clearly no. The only thing that would get him more ladies is to drive an old van like Ribby drives.
With the wolf painted on the side.
Yeah. Hey, just so you know, every van in Canada has a wolf painted on the side.
that's
I
just
know
how they
you.
come up there.
I know you Americans. That's like an aftermarket thing. But here in Canada, that's exactly how the vans come from the factory. Is one side's a wolf and the other side's a cheetah.
Oh yeah, man. I don't know if everybody realizes just how big of a legend Carl Kuster is. Like that guy raced Blair Morgan, Tony Heikkinen. Like that guy has done more things in this sport. Him and Baran are probably on that same level of as accomplishments and accomplished
Yeah.
riders. But
Yeah.
but Carl is just so quiet and so humble that people just don't really know what he's done. Like the guy is, and then on top of that, he's helping design all these new summits that we're riding.
Yeah, he's a pretty special cat, and he's the other thing is he's just super fun to ride with, and one of the biggest things is he his ability to just get people out, no matter if they've just started snowmobiling or if they've been snowmobiling for a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You just put him in the piece. Some guys you bring in a group and they make the group kind of tear apart. They try to beat everybody and the group splinters. And Carl's
Yeah.
the opposite of that. You would never know that, and because his passion is really to get people out. Hey Ryan, I'm gonna. I don't know if you've been. I know you've been watching the show, which is a huge honor. And we got a little wind today. It's absolutely beautiful. We were like 17, 18 degrees today, which for you Americans, you double it and add 30, And then, if you smoke anything that's used to be illegal or is highly illegal down in the United States but isn't legal here, then you add 5 more degrees.
That's the Canadian. Okay, I've never understood Canadian math.
That's why it's
the best
confusing.
explanation I've ever heard of
That's
the
why
Celsius
the
system.
kilometers. It's why the kilometers miles things don't stack up. But when you know, you know. We do a thing every night here in Squamish and throughout British Columbia, and we turned it into Rev for Support. And we also added Rob. We're going to talk about that too. Rob Kinkade into that because he was such an instrumental person in the industry. And we call it Rev for Support. And Rev for Rob. And so you're gonna hear the lights go off. So anything you got in there you need to make some noise. I know that e-bike won't do it, but I'm gonna hop up on my sled, make a few little revs, and this is Rev for Support.
I can jump in on that. I'm gonna fire up Rob's buddy's sled. Take a break off. You set off the car alarm?
Listen to
your neighbors up there are into it.
Hey, you know what? I'm lucky that we're lucky that the fire department isn't called every week in this block with the fires that are going on. I don't know what you're doing during this time, but I just ripped the roof off my gazebo, and which is cedar shakes because it needs to be done. And I'm burning them at the same time. It's awesome.
Oh, I bet they love that.
I got nails and wood flying right into the fire pit and blasting fire right up. It's every snowmobiler out there would be proud.
That's awesome. Good job.
So I'm going to start off because with my Snowest story is
that's a good one.
Around 2005, I was there's an 11-year-old in that truck right now, and she never gets to honk the horn. But this is 2005. I was racing as a pro mountain biker and cross-country skier and a bunch of other crap for a long time. And I had retired. I had stopped racing, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a snowmobile. Actually, my buddy who I bought a dirt bike from, he came down the mountain one day when I was riding, and he said, you got to get a snowmobile. And he showed me the snowmobile in the back of his truck, and I sort of stuck in my head. So I didn't know anything about snowmobiles. And I came onto Snowest and onto the forums, and I just started asking around the Skidoo at that time. I mean, it was just a weird. I just went right into the Skidoo forum, and for no reason, it just felt like I can't even tell you the reason why. But I went in there and I started asking questions. At that time, it was the ZX chassis, and I started talking to guys.
The what chassis?
The ZX chassis. And I was looking at them and I was talking to guys. I was looking in the for sale, and guys were literally like, I'd ask about their sleds, and they'd say, hey, well, if you don't buy mine, anyone that you're looking at, just send me a picture of it and I'll tell you what it's worth or whatever. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And it was literally like that. I ended up buying a 2003 800 HO 151. And I remember lighting it up in the guy's garage, and I couldn't believe how loud it was. And I went back and paid him. And I took that out. The first ride had the big windshield on. My buddy said, you got to rip that windshield off, buddy. It's gonna fall off on the first time you roll it. And I was like, what do you mean roll it? I'm going to ride this thing, not roll it. And I was stuck about 11 times that first day out, but I was absolutely hooked. And I come from skiing, and not that I'm going to maybe sound like I was the guy who started the carve, but I wanted to ride this thing like I skied, and I couldn't carve it. And so I went on the forums again, and I said, look, man, I can't carve this thing. And the guy's like, cut out your sway bar. And I was like, what the hell's a sway bar? And the guy's like showed me under the thing, and I'm not kidding. I went under there with a hacksaw, and remember how hard and steel that thing is. I cut right through both sides and pried it out, and all of a sudden I can carve. And for the first few years, guys would kind of know that I was up riding, because, well, you know, at that time everyone was just kind of going up the peak, turn around, come down, over to the next peak, and I would just carve everywhere. Once I could do it, I would everywhere I went. Never went in a straight line. And I absolutely fell in love with it that first year. Put on 5,000 kilometers and bought a Rev, and off to the races it was. But I have to, just like every other snowmobile out there, thank you for not only creating the magazine and all the online content that today has just taken a whole new level, but back in the day you provided a forum that was really helpful to people like me, and it still is to this day. I mean, the reason why I'm on a lot of the forums is there's a lot of bullies that want to tell you, that they think they know everything, and this is the way, and this is crappy, and this is whatever. And there's a lot of new riders out there, and I swore, because there was a time when I was like, I'm done with these forums, but I've had so much good rapport with so many guys saying that they love me on there, because I'm just there to provide information. I'm not there to tell you to buy anything. I'm just there to give you some information that I have from the amazing people I get to work with at Skidoo, from parts and accessories to engineering to marketing to whatever it is, to relay that effective messaging so that people they get the right message. And I have to say, on behalf of myself and everybody, what you do and what you create in the snowmobile world, there's just nothing like it. I mean, their Pink Bike kind of has copied that version in the mountain bike world, and it's it's the biggest mountain bike thing in the world because of the sort of stuff that you guys set up and what you've done. And I just want to say thank you. That it's such a huge thing that you guys do, and the content keeps coming. I will run into this question of the latest video that you did on the free ride 154 turbo 2.5 was one of the best videos I've ever seen.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, one because you're an honest guy. People don't know that you're a really talented rider, because you never talk about that, and that's really not what you're about. But you're a really amazing rider, and you get to ride all these snowmobiles. So what's so great is the way you package it in a video and talk about it. It's done very, very well and effectively, and maybe talk a little bit about that and your position at Snowest and what it means to you, and then we'll get into that video.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for all of that. The forums, all we really did is create a platform, and we just lucked out with a lot of really good guys that came on there, good guys and ladies that had a lot of good things to say and good things to add about the sport. I mean, when you're talking, that's like back to Teton Ice and the B thread. You remember that thing?
Oh yeah.
Oh geez, that I mean, it was wild back then. It was the Wild West of forums back then. But I mean, it's a family business, so I grew up, going to races with my dad and riding. I rode a Mach 1 into the mountains up in Mount Jefferson where we ride when I was like 11 years old. Like that was my first hardcore mountain ride, and have just been hooked on it my whole life. So when my dad retired in 2008, my brothers and I took it over, and so my primary duty has been Snowest, like just taking that, because I've been so passionate about it, and it's all I've known really. So I've just kept that going, and when it started, the magazine was so big because there wasn't really a digital media, so we kind of treated it like kind of like newspaper, like you write about what's happening in the sport, and you kind of be just objective and treat it just like a reporter. But since the digital stuff has come around, we really had to jump on board with that, and really had to change kind of our approach to kind of keep ourselves relevant, because not a lot of print is relevant anymore, right? I mean, no matter what industry you're talking about. So to keep ourselves relevant, I really followed the model of, I don't know if there's any moto guys out there, but Pulp MX, like Steve Mathis is just phenomenal at covering moto, because he is just straight up honest and blunt and brutal, and he will just tell it like it is. And I'm not comparing myself to Steve Mathis by any means, but that guy has kind of been the inspiration for the model that I want us to do with Snowest. Same with Jason Wygant and Racer X, Davey Coombs. Those guys just do such a good job of capturing the cool people in the sport, and that's what I love about this sport. It's a fun community, right? We do it because it's so fun, but we do it because we get to hang out with fun people that share that passion and share enjoying. And not a lot of people on this planet that would prefer to go out in freezing cold weather, in snow, and in a storm, and in wind, and call that fun. So we're a unique crowd, and there's some really unique people in that crowd. So it's really fun to cover it. I like the personalities. I love the funny stuff. We don't take ourselves too seriously. I think this sport needs a little more humor and a little more, ability to just kind of poke fun at ourselves and enjoy what we are, because after all, we're just snowmobiling, right? I mean, we're just a bunch of guys who would sell our house, live in a trailer, but have a brand new snowmobile every year. Like, that's the mentality.
Yeah. Hey,
It's just
you
fun.
just you just described how I live.
I described you. You probably live in the backseat of that truck, don't you?
Hey, so on that note of fun, your wife Candace, she's amazing, and you guys are both amazing. You really turned it up in the last few years, especially given the camera to her. She's going around the shows with her friend,
Yeah.
and they, it really has changed the vibe at shows and made them really more about fun. And it's something I think that they definitely needed, because it just sort of like, some people take it, like you say, they take it way too serious. And it's not that there is a time to be serious and a time to be punctual and all that, but really, like you said, what this is about is having fun with your friends. And you guys do an amazing job. From the interviews you do that, and Candace also coming into her own of making these films. Talk a little bit about that and how that kind of came about.
She honestly, you won't find somebody who would rather be somewhere warm, where it's like when we went to Mexico for spring, for Skidoo reveal.
Yeah.
She would have lived there. Like, I had to drag her home, but
Yeah.
she does love coming to the show, her and Emily, and you give them a camera and let them walk around. And it started out really unique because they didn't really know any of the terminology or the industry or or who you guys were. So they could kind of float around and nobody knew who they were. And so they would just ask the most oblivious, funny questions and get the most dumbfounded responses from all these, sponsored riders in the sport. And it just took off, and it turned into something just unique in the industry. Because like you said, we're a sport of products, right? Everybody's pushing a product, and you can sell a product in the middle of a joke, and you can have fun selling a product. You don't always have to have, your shirt buttoned up and stand up straight and just be completely serious about it. You'll still sell product. It's all about connecting with people and bringing out personalities. I mean, that's my biggest thing with you guys. You guys, the ambassadors of the OEMs or whatever aftermarket clothing company or anything like that. You guys are ambassadors because A, you're good riders, and B, you're good at content, but you're funny people. You have personalities. Like, there's more to you than just Dave Nerona, the snowmobiler guy. So it's fun to capture that. So her and Emily, Candace and Emily, have gone to these shows, and you throw a camera in their hand, and the stuff that they come back with is just hilarious. And it's so unique, and it's been so refreshing. And I think that really did kind of catapult that movement that we've had the last 4 or 5 years of pushing toward, let's be more entertaining. Let's be more about personalities. Let's capture more of the fun side and the humor. And because there's some funny dudes out there. Jay Menneberry, like, you see him at a show, super quiet guy. You don't really know anything about him. The guy's funny, right? Yeah. Tony Jenkins, same way. Cooster. I mean, Cooster is Cooster. Who jokes around more than Cooster?
Yeah.
The guy's just hilarious. So it's fun to watch. Fun to watch that, and it's fun to see that content get created. Where Candace catches it at the show, and it's really unique. And then I think all the media in the industry is kind of going towards that, and it's awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Hey, speaking of product, what product are you running in that hair of yours? It's looking pretty rad there.
Oh, that is all natural silver fox. I mean,
wow, but
I don't know if that's from teenagers.
What's keeping it up?
I don't know. Like, it's just thick. I got my grandpa's hair, and his hair was totally white when he was 50 years old. So I'm knocking on that door, and it just stands up.
It looks good. And you know Colton Olstad, right? Hill climber.
Yeah.
He's a good buddy of mine, and I felt so bad that he wasn't going to the hill climb series that I decided to bring his hair back. It's called the cul-de-sac, so you can see why I'm asking for a little bit of product right there. And people will see more of this tomorrow with Jeremy Mercier. But
that's awesome.
It's a little more than party up than business up front and party at the back. It's kind of the reverse of that.
That's full on commitment right there.
Yeah, it's like I had my my little one do it. She's she wants to be a hairdresser. I thought, hey, you know what? If you want, you gotta go full in. You gotta go full in. So yeah, and that's Colton Olstad. You know, for all those guys on the hill climb circuit, we were just talking. You were just talking to mention Ski-Doo. We want to talk about all the riders, like all the guys at Arctic Cat and all the guys at Yamaha and all the guys at Polaris and as well as Ski-Doo. You know, we really miss being out there with everybody. This sport goes beyond brand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
It goes beyond anybody. It really is about people. And I think that's really important. We really miss seeing all the racers out there, miss going to Jackson. I mean, it is the heart of our industry is like Heydays and Jackson and all the spring shows and all the fall shows.
Yep.
And to sort of miss a big segment of that, I think it sucks. Let's not mix words. It really sucks. And we'll a little bit about on the funny side. You know, we just obviously lost Rob Kinkade, and I know he was a close friend. You guys did so much with him, and man, nothing hit me harder was all those snowmobiles. At the cemetery the other day. That was someone did a little video of it, and man, it just hits home when you see that, and again when you see all those snowmobiles, right? It's not just Arctic Cat. There's Ski-Doos in there and Yamahas and Polarises, and I think it was really cool. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Rob. You did a great video. I guess you did it in the summertime on the chairlift with him. I thought it was magical, and getting him out of his zone of sledding where most people see him. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with him, what he meant to you and to the sport.
Man, if I can get through it. I met Rob in 2010 with Tony Jenkins. We were going to ride with Boondocker, the Turbo guys, and Tony's like, "Dude, you got to come. Rob Kinkade's coming. This guy's hilarious. Like he will make your stomach hurt. He's just so funny." So we went and rode, and I've been pulling up old content, and I found these photos that I shot on the top of this ridge that day with Rock and Jared Sessions. And Dave McClure was there, and Rob Kinkade, and Rob was wearing Sorel boots, some climb bibs that were ripped and had duct tape around the knee. I think it was like a Columbia coat or some old coat he got at Cow Ranch store, and those brown leather gloves, an HJC helmet, and some old Scott goggles. I mean, this was just Rob Kinkade, the cowboy. This was before he was racing, obviously. So, and the first thing he told me, because I kind of joking with him about, you know, his get up there that he had, and he said, "Oh, I've got better pants, but those are my going to town pants. So I left them home. This is a real ride." So from there, we just and then we had a ride in July that we did. It was kind of this athlete ride that we would invite a bunch of guys, spend a day on dirt bikes in Afton, and then we would spend a day on sleds, and Brant and Keith Curtis and just anybody that we could get to come would come. And you know, Rob was there and Dave was there. And so you fast forward the next, I don't know, another year and a half, and just hanging out with Rob and Dave a little more and getting to know those guys and get to know his character, and just like this guy never, like his mouth never stops. Just it doesn't matter what you're doing, the guy just never stops. And we were talking one summer, and Snowest was doing a project sled, and we did this rotation, and we were on the Arctic Cat year, and this was the year of the model year 2013, so summer of 2012. And I thought, okay, Rob and Dave, what if you guys help build this sled? Let me talk to Arctic Cat. Let's see if these guys want to jump on board and create this Arctic Cat backcountry team, because I think Ski-Doo at the time had started down this backcountry rider road. And so we just put this pitch together and gave it to Arctic Cat, and they jumped right on it. And we were just like, you know, you guys have something here. You really have something here. So we went and did a photo shoot in Dave McClure's shop. That became a big poster and part of a big promotional package that Arctic Cat did. And that was the start of the Arctic Cat backcountry team. And it just took off from there. I mean, it was like wildfire, just absolutely crazy, because these two guys would, and that first show we went to, it was the Salt Lake Snowmobile Show in 2012. And Dave told this story at Rob's services on Wednesday. that we set up a table and we had posters. We printed them out, some autograph posters, and we had that big photo shoot poster that we did. And those two guys, Rob Kinkade and Dave McClure, sat there for hours waiting for somebody to come ask for an autograph. And from that point on, I mean, you just take that little show in a nutshell, fast forward, 8, 9 years to what that duo became. It's just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. So, yeah, I mean, and Rob was local, and Rob was a friend, and but Rob was just so unique. Like everything that the sport came together and did for him in the last 7 days. 7 days ago right now.
Yeah.
When we first heard about it. It's just amazing what's happened in the last 7 days. The sport, and not just Eastern Idaho, not just the West, like the nation, people from Canada, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. He's got friends in Japan. He's got friends in Sweden, friends in Europe. Like, the outpouring of support and care for that guy was mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
And all well deserved, and you can still donate to their GoFundMe page. I think that's important to let the family know. Kind words all matter, and they're going to go through a lot. We all are. Like you said, it just hit home too when you say that, like a week ago. As I sit here and it's the weather's just warmed up, and it kind of feels like a different, it feels like it's a month, but yeah, so we can all do that. And I agree. I mean, those two, to me, you could not find two better brand ambassadors for a brand that fit better together, like a Lego. Like those guys are just, they it's like I always said, they couldn't ride anything else. It just doesn't make sense. And I only mean that in all just up, respect. And for Arctic Cat, for the stuff they build, and for those guys and how they connect with their brand. When you meet people who are Arctic Cat riders, the hardcore ones, it's like those guys were like, it's like they were the leaders. They were the leaders.
And how much does that mean that those two guys stuck with Arctic Cat for that? There was no other option. I mean, behind the scenes, they had offers. They had talks with other brands. They had talks with other clothing brands, but those two were loyal to their supporters. Absolutely loyal. If they had a sponsor, Fox, Motorfist, Arctic Cat, they were absolutely loyal to them. And that GoFundMe that you mentioned, I mean, that is really special. That's something that Stephen Clark and Rhett Clark and Justin Stevens and Brock Jenna and a bunch of other guys, they're kind of local here that spent time with Rob, that they wanted to put together, and that was organized, and that thing has just gone absolutely crazy. I cannot believe how much support that has generated for Kim and her family after this. Yeah,
it's amazing. And I will say, as we just talked about with the sort of working with brands, any aspiring snowmobilers out there that want to be sponsored, those are two guys to look at as far as being true to your heart. And also, like you said, other offers, but always look at offers. Everybody just thinks it's about money. It's never about money. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. From someone who's been doing it for 35 years. And that's why those guys were the real deal. And they knew it. I'm sure Dave knows it too. They're such a good fit with that brand that seriously, I would say Arctic Cat's not Arctic Cat without losing Rob and but with McClure and it's just not without them, those guys. So pretty amazing, both those individuals. Love them to death, both, and we'll leave it at that on the subject. Thank you so much for those stories. But if you do get the chance to get out there and send some kind words to the whole family and friends, and if you can add something to the GoFundMe page, it really will definitely help out the family. So thank you for those. I know it's definitely hard, and it's something we've had to get through a number of times, and it never gets easier, that's for sure.
And that's, that all of these guys, and you included, know that that is just the risk with what we do. And you talk about it's not about the money. It's not about the money, because there is not money in this sport. Like it's small compared to what it used to be in the late 90s. There's just not there's not the Ryan Dungeys and the Eli Tomacks in snowmobiling. Like everybody who looks like they're making money off of this sport has a summer job, and in the winter works their butt off. You take Chris Brandt. That guy works more hours than anybody I know. And I don't know, between he and even Keith Curtis. Keith Curtis has a summer job. He's running some car washes, and it's just not a sport where anybody's sitting back getting rich and making money off of being a brand ambassador. These guys do what they do because they love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, and they've risen to that level of being an ambassador and being a representative for a brand because they love it so much, and because they're willing to go out there on the snow 120 days a year and ride till it's dark, wet gear, come home, and get up and do it again the next day without complaining.
Yeah,
you guys,
exactly.
You guys are awesome. You guys, I don't know if people give you guys the appreciation that you guys deserve, because what you guys do and the time you spend, I don't think anybody sees behind the scenes what you do. Like the requests that Skidoo has for you, the requirements that you guys need to fulfill every year, going to shows and going to dealerships and spending time with people and representing the brand. It's probably not exactly what everybody signed up for. They probably thought, man, I'm going to go ride and I'm going to be on a Skidoo and I'm going to have a Skidoo hat on. I'm going to be that guy that works for Skidoo. But there's a lot of behind the scenes work that you guys do. I don't think people realize, and it's really cool what you guys do.
Yeah, I think I always try to tell, the number one thing I say to guys who, want to be brand ambassadors or sponsored athletes, whatever you want to call them, is I said, hey, go into your local dealer and look at all that stuff that dealer bought, probably $5 million in product they got sitting on their floor from whatever brand. And that brand doesn't send them a free snowmobile or a free ATV or side-by-side. And so you got to work, and it's like what you do. I say it's my job is 24 hours, 7 days a week, with a lot of little breaks in between, and I make the most of those little breaks. So yeah, thanks for including me in that bunch. There's so many amazing people in the industry that just, from all just the riders to, well, we're all just riders. That's all we're doing. Some of us just have, we've got our foot in the door of just being allowed to, for me, it's just living on both sides of the fence, seeing how these things are made, and just going to Rotex and seeing like the assembly line of the engines and putting together these turbos and being a part of the testing and watching engineers and watch their minds work. And, you're writing about it, so you're there a lot of times too. And it's just mind boggling. Lots of times you and I will look at each other and be like, holy cow, this is like, are we really here right now? And for me, why I love to capture some of the video content and some of the stuff I can't capture, but I'm the guy who's always like, man, I'm so lucky to be here. Every snowmobiler I wish could go through the Rotex assembly line and see like the actual what they're doing. It's beyond even what your imagination can dream of, and how they come up and the machines they built to crack the rods and do all this stuff, and it's mind-boggling. So yeah, it's super cool. And let's go into that video that you just shot and you did on the 154 Summit 850.
2.5. That was the biggest detail, the 154 2.5.
Because I actually got to ride it with Tony many years ago, and I was, Tony knows a lot of that stuff. I was just more vocal and saying, wow, you ride this, Jay Menneberry rides this, Ashley rides this. And anybody who had the 154 gets in the 2.5. And, I've been, I guess put over the barrel many times by guys like say what they didn't believe. And you just validated everything in that video. So tell us, when you got that, was it your choice to pick a 154, or was it one they sent you?
No, that's just what Steve sent us. So it's just what showed up at the dealer with our name on it. And I like I said in the video, I'm really glad that they did, because I probably would have picked a 163 3-inch, but I guess we already had that yellow one.
Just so you know, it's a 165 now.
Oh, 165, yeah.
I have to correct you. I can't believe I'm correcting you.
Dude,
The last time.
I had to go back and reshoot the end of that same video because I said 163.3 in that video.
Yeah.
There's just too many numbers to remember anymore. So yeah, a 165.3 is what we've been riding on that yellow mid-season release turbo. So when the 160 or the 154 2.5 showed up, it was such a fun sled. Like, so go back. How far back do you have to go to where 151, 153, 154, when that was the long sled, like that was the deep pow sled, right?
Yeah.
And now we're all looking at that like, it's probably too short for what I'm doing. But in reality, it's more than capable of anything that you need to do. It's just anything bigger than that is just footprint, right? So you're just trying to keep the back end from dropping as you take off. That's all track length. That's all track length is doing for us anymore. And if you go to a 175, now you're to the point where the back end just doesn't drop when you take off. You just go. So if you go back to a 154, it just brings back all of this fun factor that we had 10, 12 years ago, maybe not even that long ago. It's just such a fun little sled. And the 2.5 versus a 3-inch, honestly, I think if you're going to 154, you're better off on the 2.5 because it's less of a shovel. It goes forward before it goes down, where a 3-inch will go down before it goes forward. It's not gonna wheelie. So if you're a Wisconsin wheelie boy, get the 3-inch, I guess. But you just need to get on a 2.5 and try it. It was so dang fun. You have to carry more momentum, which kind of again goes back to if we could take this sport, everything that's going on right now, and put more of the rider aspect back into it, the fun factor goes up, right? Yeah. Horsepower goes up, traction goes up, rider ability requirements can go down. So if you shorten your track and put a little shorter lug on it, I mean, yeah, it's a turbo, but I'm not going to get rid of that. You go to a little shorter track and shorter lug, and it is so flipping fun. You got to carry your speed, you got to manage your throttle a little more, and you can rally that thing, and it was so fun. I fell in love with it. Absolutely fun.
Yeah, it's so hard. I know, because when guys go to buy a sled, they buy from what they know from maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. If they've had a 15 and then they're buying an 18, that's 3 years. And a lot of the technology has changed now. In 3 years, there's a huge difference. Yeah. Right there, we can talk about, it's a turbo and shot start, right? Those are like, a couple of years apart. So it's interesting when guys, when they move to like a new chassis and then they go, I'll never go back to a 2.5. And I understand when they've got to put their money down that they don't want to put their money down and make a mistake. And that's why that video, and again, guys will always say that I'm just trying to, I think that one was less because it's not like I'm trying to sell anything different. I was trying to sell you less. It's less money, but it really does, I agree, works better. And in a lot of scenarios, and after riding one and spending a lot of time, I was like, wow, this is the track speed is, especially when you come blasting out on a super deep day, you kind of want that track speed. You don't mind pinning it because it's so deep, and it's kind of like the turbo. Like that's the beauty of the turbo is it does all those things the 2.5 normally naturally aspirated sled does, because it's creating way more track speed in those longer lengths. Like you said, I mean, that video taps on a hole right across the board. And I really recommend people watch it, not once, but digest it. You got to watch it a few times. There's a lot of information in there, and you did a really good job of it. And I think it was great. Now, I will ask you, you weren't really a big turbo guy before. And I know that because I talked to somebody about it. Why was that?
Oh man, you're trying to get me in trouble. The guys that I ride with that run turbos, the turbo is just in their head. So their sleds run fine, but they always think the sled should run better. So they spend most of the time, they'll go do a run, they'll do a canyon, they'll do a side hill line, and then you'll sit them down there. I mean, this is before the plug and play turbos. They'll just sit down there and play with their box and just adjust their fuel map. And they'll go up 2 in the mid range and down 2 on the bottom end and up 5 on the top end. And then they'll go right around, and then they'll come back down and sit on their box, and they'll go up 6 more on the top end and 2 more in the mid range, and then take a little off the bottom. And they've done this every single ride the whole winter. And it's just like, you know what, stalkers. I'm just riding stalkers. Like don't give me, like, give me some lightweight stuff, sure, but I want to ride. Like if I have time to go out and hit the trail at 9 o'clock and get in the mountains and ride that day, I don't want to spend that time messing on a sled. It's the same thing with the bike. I don't want to sit there and work on my bike in the mountains. I'm in the mountains to ride. So it's not necessarily just turbos. It's just, I'm a big proponent of mods. Like I love mods, but I think it's got to be done in small levels, and you have to do it in stages, because if you take a sled and you just bolt on all this stuff, you don't know what's doing what. And I guarantee you one of those parts is your weak link, but you're not going to know what it is because you put it all on at once. You got to start out with just a can and a little bit of clutching, then go to pipes and a little bit of different clutching, then go to some lightweight parts, and then focus on that and get your suspension dialed in, get your spring rates, get your valving, change your shocks if you need to. Work on really balancing that. If you're going to put a turbo on, isolate that to just the turbo. Don't do anything else at the same time. And then if you're going to buy an aftermarket turbo, get one of these new kits that is plug and play and you can't really mess with it. They run good. Nothing runs like these things. The only way I can compare it is if you could go to like the Ford store and buy an F-250 with a naturally aspirated diesel, and then go buy an aftermarket turbo and slap it on there. How well would that run? Versus going to the Ford store and buying the new Power Stroke with the turbo. That's how it's supposed to run. It's just all factory.
So when you came to ride the new turbo in Yellowstone, I know you almost, when you saw it, you were like, I'm not interested.
I mean, I was interested, but I've got this thing where when we go to these new product intros, I never start out on the new stuff. Mainly because where were we? We were at the airport, right? So we got 12, 15 miles of trail. I don't want to ride the new turbo on the trail. Like, wait till I get in the mountains before I feel that first. Yeah. And then I always ride the old stuff, like the current model year stock stuff, to the mountain and then in the mountains for a while, because you have to establish that baseline. If your job is to test and compare and come out with like an opinion on this stuff, you have to have a baseline, and it has to be same day baseline. Otherwise you can't really get anything valid out of it.
I think that was another great part of your video, is when you were talking about the balancing of the sled and trying one thing at a time, and not everybody who's like, I'd love to be a tester, I want to do this, I know this. And actually the truthful thing is guys have one sled, they try something, they don't even know. Once they put it on, they have nothing to go back to their baseline, and they don't write it in a book. They're not carrying around a book. And literally you have to do that. You have to know the feeling, the snow conditions, the temperature of the snow conditions, all that stuff really does matter. And for someone like what you're doing, when, like you say, when you're doing testing. So again, people watch that video, if they listen and read and listen between the lines, so to speak, of what you're saying, it really, really makes sense. And it's how you have to tackle your job of trying these new things. Because it's easy to get on the new thing and say, this is awesome. And I always, people think it's just my personality, but I always try to downplay it a little bit. But just because I always try to make guys buy the least expensive stuff. And like you say, you got to start somewhere, and you don't want to, it's easy to say, hey, just go out and buy the new turbo. It's rad. And you're like, well, it's in Canadian. We're talking $25,000. So for someone, you can still have tons of fun on an 850 naturally aspirated. But of course, we're going to talk about the turbo, just like if you got a Ferrari sitting in your driveway, man, and you got an electric car sitting next to it, a Nissan Leaf, which one are you going to put, which one do you want to go for a drive in, right? But you have to drive both to get a baseline, and that's why we talk about it a lot. But I want to hear your thoughts on it after you rode it.
From that day in West Yellowstone?
Yeah, just the turbo. We're just talking turbo now.
So you got to go back to the conditions, right? Because all these sleds are subjective to conditions. Everything we test, if you tested that turbo, say that yellow turbo came out in a time of year where we had gone like 3 weeks with no new snow, and it was crusty and hard and settled, that's hard to test because that's not the right setting for that sled. I mean, that sled is for coastal deep snow, and it's for elevation, and it's for really just deep powder. So when we showed up in West Yellowstone, the funny story is I had to go up the night before and park at a cabin in Island Park, get up at 6:30 the next morning and ride a snowmobile over the mountain to West Yellowstone because it had snowed so much the highway was closed. So you want to talk about like perfect conditions to go test a new turbo? That was it. So we went to West Yellowstone, and like the town was just buried. Like they were everything was shut down. They were trying to get out and get stuff plowed out. So it was just epic. And we took off from West Yellowstone, the airport, and went up on Two Top. And they kind of just let me lead the way because that's kind of our backyard. And so I had Jeremy Mercier and Rob Alford and our staff and a couple engineers from Skidoo. And we went up into this little pocket, and the snow was just unreal. So when we jumped off the trail, I've got a video where Jeremy and we both got our GoPros, and we click them on at the same time. And he takes off in front of me and just dives into this powder. And I jump off and follow him, and you can hear me laughing, and you can hear him laughing when he comes close to me because we're both just having the time of our lives because we wouldn't be doing this on the stalkers. You'd go through the stuff, obviously, but the fun factor was just like times 10 because instead of driving through the snow and on a stalker and carving and, you know, dropping into trying to slingshot around a tree well to build a little momentum and bust through some stuff, you're just wheeling it. Like you're just leaning back, just having the time of your life, just pinning this thing and just steering it with your toes and just walking this thing around. It was just an unreal feeling. And what struck me that day was this thing feels the exact same as an 850 Expert, but it has all this extra power. Like it doesn't have this weird balance where there's so much weight hanging off to the side to where when the skis come up, you can kind of feel the chassis twist. It's just balanced. It felt like an Expert. You know, nothing was really different. It didn't come off bottom end any different. It didn't have a lean spot through the mid range. It didn't have a hiccup anywhere or a little gurgle it didn't have any clutching issues. Like it ripped up to peak RPM, and it built boost just as smooth as a baby's butt, and that thing just took off. I mean, it was just so fun, and it was the perfect conditions to test it. Deep snow. I mean, Jeremy and I got stuck so bad together. like we came around and went into these trees, and it's right where the trees just tighten up, and so I tried to poke a little line, and I got knocked off by a tree and got stuck, and Jeremy comes blowing by me, wraps around a tree, and then I think he hit his head on a branch and he just digs down. And so we just kill it, and we're just sitting there just laughing. I mean, absolutely laughing because it was so fun.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've been lucky to ride that since that day. I haven't stepped on a naturally aspirated sled, and man, I'll tell you, every day has been that giggle. Like it doesn't matter. We're sled skiing, riding deep snow, or going for a mission out into the backcountry. It's been just like, it's amazing. So I want to move on to some quick questions here and ask you. These are going to be quick, so just quick answers. Sunrise or sunset? Which do you like better?
Sunset.
Do you wear a onesie, or do you
Yes.
take off your pants and jacket?
Onesie.
Right on. What year was the Rev platform introduced?
4.5.
Nice. What can you name all the Canadian ambassadors for Ski-Doo?
For Skidoo? Oh man.
Canadian.
Corona Nerona, Rob Alford, Carl Kuster. Canadian.
Yeah.
Who else am I forgetting up here?
Two more cool dudes.
Ashley's in Alaska.
She could be.
She's
She's
not
kind
a
of
cool
Calgary
dude.
and Alaska, so we'll accept that. Two more guys.
Oh,
One
Charles.
we added. Yep.
Charles, right?
Charles Gagnon, awesome
Yeah.
guy. And way out in Eastern Canada,
Oh man.
the man. He's always riding that Tundra Extreme.
Yeah,
fishing.
yeah. But this is why I'm a writer, because my brain doesn't think fast enough to talk. I have to sit there at a keyboard.
we'll let you go with that. That's Jeff Hahn. So you gotta
Yeah,
hit
yeah,
those
yeah.
guys on Instagram, especially Jeff. He's an amazing guy, and Charles as well. He's probably cooking up a storm right now. Where are Ski-Doo sleds built?
Quebec. Am I even saying that
Valcourt.
right?
Yep,
Valcourt?
Valcourt, Quebec. When was SHOT introduced?
Oh man, I should know because I was up at Carl's place for that intro. That was 18, right?
Yep.
Model year 18?
What? You bet. What's Jay Manaberry's race number in the hill climbs?
411.
Right on. And now we'll go back into some stuff. You're big on e-bikes.
I am, yeah.
I'm big on e-bikes. We chatted a little bit. We talked a little bit about today. I want to bring you up to Squamish sometime and take you in some. It would be
Dude,
cool to do.
I would love that because
We'll go.
what the stuff we're riding here in Idaho, like there's a reason I don't post a lot of pictures of it because it's nothing like what you have up there. Like,
Yeah, we'll go
your
see.
drone follow footage is crazy.
We'll go sea doing, and then we'll go ride e-bikes. And what do you love about e-bikes? What do you love about them?
I I love them because I can. I'm a dirt biker in the summer, right? I'm not a mountain biker. I didn't come from mountain biking. Like going back to Rob Kinkade, like Rob's the guy that got me into mountain biking. We went and started doing the Jackson Pass and then Targhee, and then he went crazy on the cross country stuff and won Pierre's Hole and did some crazy stuff. And I was just like, pedaling this stuff uphill sucks. Like I can do it, but I'm dead. It kills me for a week. It burns my lungs and burns my hands. And I didn't have the time to dedicate to become that monster athlete, mountain biker. So when the local bike shop here, Bill's Bike, when Doug and those guys got some e-bikes in, he called and he's like, you got to try this out. So I took one for a day and I went up to Little Elk Canyon over here by Palisades. It's just a horse trail. And suddenly mountain biking became extremely fun because now I'm still pedaling. I'm still maintaining a pretty high heart rate. So I'm getting good exercise, but I'm covering ground. So if I've got 3 hours to ride, now I'm getting a ride in instead of getting still a view distance from the truck. Like I'm getting an actual ride in 3 hours. There's an awesome loop last summer in Driggs that I did, 17-mile loop, clear up into the mountains and back down to the river and back up over. And I did that in like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And that's why I love e-biking, because it's a little bit dirt biking, but you take away all the gear and all the heavy stuff you have to wear, and you take away the noise. And now it's just throw it in the back of the truck, pull up to a cool trail, jump on. It's quiet. It's in the fresh air. And when it's 90 degrees and just hot and you're just miserable on a dirt bike, that's when e-biking is the way to go.
Yeah, we have some dirt bike trails right here in Squamish, about 50K, and I love them. But the problem is to ride, if you want to keep riding well, you got to ride at least 3 times a week. And because if you're not, you're just fumbling after a while. Mm-hmm. Whereas we have 350K of mountain bike trails, and literally I bike almost 50 kilometers, 35 miles every day, because I leave my driveway, I'm ripping up the road at 30. And then when I get to the steep climbs, I'm doing more like 18 to 20. And like you say, in that 2 hour time frame, man, you've done more riding than most people would do all week. And you come back and you're super jazzed to, cut the grass or, fix your truck that you're going to live in for the rest of your life, whatever you got to do. And that's what I love about it. The other thing that I really like about it that not a lot of people know, which I'm really pushing, is, when you come from a sport in snowmobile and like a guy like Jay Manaberry, who's working on hill climbs, you need fitness. You need running fitness. So running up a mountain or ride. That's why all the top motocrossers ride bikes. They ride road bikes to get fitness. The problem when you put them on a normal bike is that to get that fitness, they have to work extremely hard to do it. And you get fitter. That's true. But you also lose or use a lot of the strength that is much better put into the strength for the sport that they do. So if you're a motocrosser, what will make you a better motocrosser is just putting more laps. Now you're going to put less laps in if you have to go out for a 3 hour, 4 hour mountain bike ride up a couple of mountain passes to get the fitness. So what changes all that with an e-bike is you get all this high energy fitness from the heart rate, but you don't tax your skeletal system as like with the ligaments and muscles, which now can be translated to more track time. But you've improved your, like you say, your heart rate. So now you're getting the fitness that you need. And that's the same with sledders. I mean, the number one thing most sledders run out of in the mountains, you know, they go and spend all this money to go to a riding camp. The first thing they should have done for the first month is get better fitness, right? Yeah. It's they're losing ground. I mean, as soon as they get tired and get too stuck, it's game over. They want to go home, right? And I see it coming from that back. You know, my background used to be in that. So I absolutely love it, and it's funny to listen to people that you don't get a workout and all this. You can definitely ride them easy, and you can. That's the other plus of them is you can go out for an easy ride, and you can let the bike do more of the work and just soft pedal with a high cadence. And now you're only working at 40%. But that's not how you ride them, and that's not how I ride them. Just like when you get on the turbo, because things can be done easier, you don't ride it easier. You just go more places that you never got to before, or it took a lot of punching. So that's I think of an interesting thing. And I seriously, the open invitation, we will chat more about that. Now, I want to ask you a few more questions. What was the last sled you totaled? Because you get to try maybe. Hey, let's back up one question here. The question I had is, what has been your favorite? And this can be, it's non. I don't care the brand. What has been your favorite release of all time? Like the thing that stands out in your mind, like okay, we went to a sled release and this happened, and why it was the best for you.
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. The vertical escape was a good one. Man, that's a tough. The 1M, the Arctic Cat 1M, when that thing came out, that was a really fun thing to be a part of. The Summit 800 151, that yellow one that came out. God, when was that? 02, 03. I don't know. There's not one that stands out. And as I think back to all of them, the reason that they're fun, it again just goes back to the experience, the overall experience you have, because the engineers are make all these events that we do more fun than just riding the snowmobile. So anytime we do a Skidoo event, you know, Pascal's there, Jimmy's there, and it's Frederick is there. It's fun. So the new sled reveals, whether they're mid-season or new model, testing the new snowmobile is just kind of half of the experience. Well, 90% of the experience, but there's a big part. I just got coronavirus. There's a big part that goes to, can't stop touching my face. Big part that just goes to hanging out with these engineers, because they're the same dude as you and me. Instead of being, you know, Dave Nerona up in Canada, it's Marty Sampson in Minnesota, you know, engineer for Polaris, or Jimmy or Pascal or Dominique or these guys at Skidoo that are just fun guys. Yeah,
I call them super nerds. They're the coolest guys on the planet, right? And
they are.
They the way they can, you know, it's pretty funny actually. One of my favorite things this year when I was riding with Fred was we're out doing stuff, and you know, he just looks, and the smile on his face says it all, right? Mm-hmm. Those guys get to ride, and they're good riders, but they don't get to ride as much as we get to ride. And you can tell, like they're not, they don't brag at all, but you can tell when a smile comes on one of their faces, like they're like, this thing is a screamer. Like they just love it. And that's, you know, when you're a part of that, it is, to me, I see that. And I remember when Shot came out, I was working with JF, a good friend of mine who's in Rotex now. And he goes, one day I'm going to give you, because remember when the T3 came out, it didn't have a battery. Yeah. And I was big on electric start, and because I always had it, and that didn't. And he's like, there's no way I'm putting a battery in that. I took 16 pounds. There's no way, you can't make me put it. And, you know, and he goes, then one day he said, one day I'm going to give you something where you won't need a battery and it'll be electric start. And I said, I'll believe it when I see it. And, you know, a year later, we were this was pre-production, so we were up. We were actually I took him out sled skiing for the day. He's a big snowboarder, and he goes, check this out, and then he sent me his engineering sled, which had the shot, and I was like, this is unbelievable. So yeah, that is the, you know, I concur with you. Those are the fun. It's more, you know, the riding and all that's fun, but it comes as a package with hanging out with all those people.
And JF, I mean, I haven't seen him for a couple of years just because he's moved up the chain of BRP, but he was probably